This video is brought to you by Be Quiet, makers of the new Dark Base 700 mid-tower chassis featuring a tempered glass side panel, front RGB illumination, and full-length power supply cover to keep your build looking clean in 2018. Click the link in the description below to learn more. Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. I hope you are all doing well today as we've got a few news stories to get through in the world of tech. But before we do that, just a quick heads up that I've been hearing a lot of banging and saws going on throughout the morning because someone down the street from me is doing some construction work. So if you happen to hear any of that noise going on in the background, that's what it is, and it's out of my control, and just my apologies ahead of time, although it seems to have ceased for the time being, but I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. But as I said, we've got a few news stories to get through, so let's get right into it. We're going to start off with Ryzen 2, which has had a spec leak, at least for one of the processors, after it has shown up over on the Size software database. So if we go over there, I'll leave links to all the sources down in the description below, just like I always do. But going over on the Size software official live ranker, we can see we have an unknown AMD Ryzen CPU on here, with 6 cores and 12 threads. We know that this is a desktop variant because of the letter ZD indicated here, and then we could see the numbers 2600 after it, which would seemingly indicate that this is a Ryzen 2600 CPU. So this would be the newest version of what in the last generation was a Ryzen 5 1600, and the core and thread count backs that up. And looking at the frequency, we can see that it is 3.4 gigahertz. Just for those of you that might not remember, the Ryzen 1600 was at 3.2 gigahertz out of the box, and that was a 65-watt TDP part. But that's pretty much all the information that we can get from this data right now. Looking over on WCCF Tech, they did do a side-by-side comparison with a graph here showing the differences between Ryzen 5 1600 and Ryzen 2600. So as you can see, they went from 14 nanometer down to 12 nanometer, known as the Zen Plus architecture, which was formally introduced at CES last week. They're sticking with the same 6 cores and 12 threads. It's just going to have a higher base clock of 3.4 gigahertz, and they're also listing a boost clock here of 3.8 gigahertz, same amount of cache here with 19 megabytes, and the same TDP of 65 watts. And we also know that these are coming in April 2018, as said by AMD themselves. So with all of that information that we have, we can kind of maybe apply that to the other Ryzen processors we can expect to be coming out. If we're looking at, 1700, 1800X, whatever, it probably would seem likely that all of the CPUs are going to get about a 200 megahertz bump. And then with the node shrink going from 14 nanometer down to 12 nanometer, we're probably looking at slightly better efficiency there, maybe just a tiny bit faster IPC. I'm not expecting anything huge here, maybe like in the realm of 3 to 5%. So it's probably not going to be a reason for anyone already running a Ryzen CPU to go out and get Ryzen 2 or Ryzen Plus, whatever they end up going with on the naming there. But for people that didn't pick up Ryzen yet, and are still maybe running on older FX CPUs, or maybe like some Intel dual cores or older quad cores without hyper-threading, then this is probably going to be something worth waiting for if you haven't upgraded yet, as it's only just a few months away now, and we should have some here to test on the channel once those do become available. And I'm excited to see what they can do with this, and also, for my own sake, I'm kind of hoping for a Threadripper Generation 2 as well, although we haven't seen any information on that just yet. That's something I'm kind of hopeful for, as one of the reasons I haven't pulled the cord yet, or pulled the trigger I should say yet, on getting a Threadripper CPU is because of the lower clock speeds compared to Intel CPUs. Up next, we have Samsung, who has officially begun mass production on their 16 gigabit GDDR6 memory, which will be good news for the next generation of GPUs coming from NVIDIA as well as AMD. We know that Volta came out in late 2017, and that's using HBM2, but I would say it seems likely that we might see DDR6 and probably DDR5X as well in the lower-end non-flagship variants of Volta or Ampere, whatever they end up going with. If you guys remember, a couple months back we had that rumor about Ampere coming in 2018 and not Volta. With the high cost of Volta GPUs and HBM2, we might just see DDR6 coming out instead on the more mainstream cards like the 2080, 2070, and 2060 graphics card, which is the rumored naming scheme for the next generation of GeForce GTX graphics cards. So looking at this table over here on videocards.com, we could see that the DDR6 that they're going to be pushing out is around 864 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth compared to DDR5 at 432 gigabytes per second. So we're looking at double the speed of GDDR5 memory, which is very exciting. Not as fast as HBM2, but it's getting really, really close to the point where it's probably not worth the extra cost that they're needing to go through to get HBM2, as we've seen all the issues that AMD has run into getting that expensive memory on their graphics cards like Vega. So hopefully DDR6 gets a much better production run than what we were able to see with HBM2, and we could see some nice fast graphics cards coming out in the near future, hopefully in 2018, utilizing this memory as well. Up next, we have AMD, who have found themselves in some hot water in the aftermath of what happened with the Meltdown and Spectre vulnerabilities that was discovered, which previously had been thought to only be on Intel CPUs because AMD was very quick to deny it, and everyone's just kind of been throwing some serious shade Intel's way. But now we know that AMD is vulnerable as well to Meltdown and Spectre, and as a result of that, they have found themselves in a class action lawsuit for artificially increasing the share price of the company by not previously announcing that AMD processors were vulnerable as well. So we will just have to wait and see on this if AMD is going to lose some money because of falsely representing their product and putting out false information. They should have really just been upfront and honest about it ahead of time rather than putting a whole PR spin on this, and hopefully they can kind of pull themselves back from it. But it looks like they are, at least for now, being indicted for a lawsuit, and we just really aren't going to know what happens probably for quite a while, maybe even years, until this whole thing gets resolved with Intel as well as AMD as far as the legal system is concerned. And also, just for our last story, as a follow-up on the whole Meltdown and Spectre thing, there is now a tool that you can download, which I'll link down in the description below, that you can get so that you can find out if you are vulnerable to the Meltdown or the Spectre vulnerability. So I'll leave a link to this down below if you can go ahead and download this and run it on your system. It's very safe. My buddy Tech Deals actually just did a video on this earlier today. If you want to go check his video out, I'll link to that too. He did a very good guide on this, and what you should look for and everything, and how to fix it if you are vulnerable to Meltdown or Spectre. So definitely be sure to go check out his video and the links to all of our sources for today's stories. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, guys. I hope you all have a great day, and if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Leave a like on it down below and subscribe if you're not already. And I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.